Hello everyone, join me as I visit Concordia Cemetery located in El Paso, Texas. Concordia Cemetery is easy to locate when you're driving down I-10 West and taking the Copia Street exit. From there you drive about half a mile until you get to North Stevens Street where you make a right. And then from there you make another right on Yondell Street, and this is the view that you get while walking down Yondell Street. Here is the main entrance to the cemetery, and here you notice this historic Texas cemetery landmarker. When you walk in, you're greeted with nothing but brown dirt and an abundance of graves. And to your left is a marker that explains the history of this cemetery. Take a moment to read this plaque to give you the history and significance of Concordia Cemetery. So after reading that marker, you'll notice that there are different groups that are buried within Concordia Cemetery, which we will visit later on in this video. Next to this historical marker is a memorial for Hugh Stevenson's wife, Donna Juana Maria, who was the first person to be buried in this cemetery. It is said that there are over 65,000 burials located in Concordia Cemetery. Now, of course, time is not on my side, and it's pretty much impossible to record all 65,000 graves on film. However, I'm going to show the graves that caught my attention while walking through this cemetery, and share stories that I found about this cemetery on this video. While walking down the front entrance and making a left, you find the grave of John Wesley Hardin. John Wesley Hardin was a gunslinger who killed more than 30 men. While serving time in prison, he studied law, and by the time he was released, he opened up his own law firm in El Paso, Texas. He was seeing a woman by the name of Miss McRose, and she was arrested for illegally having a pistol on her by a man named John Selman, who was the El Paso City Constable. Hardin didn't like that, and he threatened Selman, and one day John Selman walked up to Hardin and shot him in the back of the head. The man who shot Hardin, John Selman, died a year later and is buried somewhere in the cemetery. When you think of a cemetery, you think of it as a place of respect and reflection. However, in this cemetery, every so often, they do reenactments of gunfights from famous gunslingers, which you see here in this video. Moving on from John Wesley Hardin's grave, we enter the Chinese section of the cemetery. Most of the people that are buried in this section are Chinese immigrants that made El Paso their home in the late 1800s and early 1900s. After doing some research, I found out that most of these Chinese immigrants made their way into El Paso through Mexico, and they played a big part in El Paso history in the early 1900s by opening up laundromats, restaurants, and grocery stores. What I really like about these grave markers is the calligraphy writing on them. I noticed this monument here. Now, I'm not sure if this is a grave, and it looks like there's calligraphy underneath that opening. And after doing some research, I noticed that in Chinese tradition, the funeral process takes 1 to 2 weeks, and that the family will burn incense and write blessings to the deceased on a piece of paper and then burn it. And I was wondering if that's what that was used for. Here we have a grave with money left behind, letting people know that they visited and paid their respects to whoever this person was. When exiting the Chinese section of the cemetery, you're greeted with these small white crosses with mounds of dirt on top of the grave. These crosses have no information whatsoever, and based on the size of the dirt mounds, it makes me believe that these are infants or young children that date back to who knows when. However, most of these graves on this section date back from like 1914 to 1917. Across this section and up against the wall of the Chinese section of the cemetery is the Mormon section of the cemetery. On this plaque, it explains the history of the Mormons who were in El Paso. Feel free to pause and give it a read. The following graves that you see lined up here is pretty much the entire Mormon part of the cemetery. In 2017, the Ghost Adventures crew did an investigation here while visiting the DeSoto Hotel in downtown El Paso. There are also ghost hunting tours that you could attend at this cemetery, which you could see here right on your screen. On a lighter note, Dia de los Muertos, otherwise known as the Day of the Dead, is celebrated here at this cemetery on November 1st and November 2nd. This is where everybody comes together and remember their deceased loved ones that have moved on from this life. There are many graves here that are decorated with flowers or mementos, showing that people still come here to visit their loved ones. Here is one of the 3 mausoleums that I could find at this cemetery, which was all boarded up completely, probably due to vandalism. This right here was interesting because this sign was smack dab in the middle of the cemetery for Zamorano's yard work, perpetual care, and monuments, and right below it was the Zamorano family. So I guess they were very well known in the community and in the cemetery. Concordia Cemetery either had or still has satanic rituals that take place here. One notorious person by the name of Richard Ramirez, who was a native of El Paso, spent his younger years here doing satanic rituals and spending the night at this cemetery. He would later be known as the Night Stalker serial killer. Throughout the cemetery, you find many religious statues that are missing their heads. The following clips are a few examples that I captured on film. The following grave caught my attention because there was this black box or black shed on top of this grave. Now it makes me think that inside there might have been an altar or some type of shrine that they were trying to protect. I'm not sure, but I don't blame them with the amount of vandalism that has taken place here through the years. Although there isn't an entrance through the Concordia Cemetery, there is a Jewish section of the cemetery that you can enter in through the I-10 access road. Here you can see that the grass is completely green and full of shrubbery, while the remainder of Concordia Cemetery is all dirt. Walking through this open gate, we enter the Masonic section of the cemetery. Here is an obelisk monument that you could see for the Freemasons of El Paso on the North Stevens Street entrance of this cemetery. I thought this was cool that somebody made a little seat out of a tree stump here. Leaving the Masonic section of the cemetery, we head towards the Buffalo Soldier Memorial that's located inside the cemetery. Walking away from the Buffalo Soldier Memorial, on the ground that I'm at currently are the graves of the children who died during the Spanish flu epidemic. I didn't know this at the time, and apparently this area is the most haunted of the cemetery. The section that we're walking in now seems to be a family plot for the French family. And that pretty much does it for Concordia Cemetery. I hope you enjoyed that brief tour. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.